Old Mendon landfill discussion. So take that.
We do have town council Karis North on with us tonight.
Okay. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karis.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone.
Maybe you want to tell us what you've discovered?
Yes, happy to.
Thank
I
you.
don't think what I've discovered is going to shock anybody, which is I don't see anything in any of the documents that changes the 1982 order that the responsibility for the landfill was divided between Ferrucci and the town, with the town having A, B, and C, and Ferrucci D and E. I see a long history of subsequent to that, DEP doesn't seem to be paying attention to that distinction at all and sending all of the notifications about the landfill to the town. And I don't see that they're copied to Ferrucci at all. And my understanding of the current status is that the concerns involve perhaps more than just the town's portion of the landfill. Is that correct?
I believe so,
Right,
because
yeah.
wasn't there a tree down that was affecting testing one of the wells? And I thought that was on an area that wasn't A, B, or C.
We talk about the most recent, that tree
Yeah.
been down. That is on C. Let me pull up the,
Okay. I need to be corrected then.
so this is the tree, Karis. I don't know if you can see this.
Yep, a little bit.
See here.
Yep, I can see the tree.
All right, so this is the tree that's down. Me and Colleen went out there on February 1st.
Uh-huh.
And as you can see, the tree is leaning against
yeah.
soil gas monitoring number 2, I believe, on the map. That is the one between the house, next to the house and the tree line.
Okay.
So as you,
And so the other thing that I didn't see in the file anywhere was a map that shows where A, B, C, D, and E are. I saw a location of wells. I saw some, just some maps of the area. I didn't see anything that actually laid out where these areas are. So is this tree on, you said it's on C, Jack?
it is on C, yes.
Okay, so it's the town's tree and the town's well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Well-
the town should be removing it.
Okay. Where it's on property that the town of Mendon does not own, do we have the right?
You'll have to
Trespass.
ask for permission to go on the property
Okay,
to take care of the tree so that you can access the well. Whatever access agreement you have, I would, I think you should suggest to them, the landowner, that it's really part and parcel of that access agreement to get to the wells, to utilize the wells, because you have to maintain the wells in order to utilize them. And so you need to remove this tree.
okay. But we need to ask for permission from the landowner first.
You do.
Okay.
You do,
Now, as
because
far
I
as
don't,
the,
I don't think it's crystal clear that it's part of the access agreement that you have. So I would ask for permission to be absolutely safe.
okay, and to my understanding, the access agreement doesn't really exist yet. It's something that we were proposing.
Okay,
Because it was suggested from one of the companies that we're working with, as that was something that was suggested that we have. So we don't have one as of today.
okay.
And
Didn't I
we've never
review
had
one last year?
We've never had an access agreement. Never
Okay,
had that legal document.
all right. I must have reviewed one for something else then. Are there Ferrucci's, well, I think there's two questions here. Who currently, and I didn't see it in my notes, who currently owns, sorry, do any Ferrucci interests currently own D and E?
I believe they
The
do.
entire property is owned by the family.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you should get access from the family to I mean, here's the issue. They should be taking responsibility. Now, this is on C, so that's an area you're responsible for, but you don't own the land. So the you're going to have to get access from them to go on and remove the tree. And then you should probably have access for anything. Are A and B, who owns A and B? The land under A and B.
Ferrucci.
Ferrucci.
Yeah,
That's
all
He
five,
owns all that property.
all
Okay.
5 parcels, A, B, C, D, and E, they are
Okay.
all on the private property ownership.
Okay. Okay, that helps. That explains why I didn't see some of the things I was looking for, and I must have missed that in our earlier conversation. So the town should have an agreement with Ferrucci. Well, ideally, it's too late now, as to, we may do the monitoring, because, if we're doing monitoring on 3, we might as well do monitoring on 5. But that doesn't relieve you of your responsibility for maintaining the landfill under the 1982 order from DEP. Well, what's now DEP? It was DEQE then. So I think, I don't know if you've had any recent conversations with the family about the landfill.
Yes, we spoke with Cynthia Manick the other just before Jack and I went and took those pictures. I called her and had a conversation with her. She was aware of the trees being down. I explained to her, asked for her permission to go onto the property to take pictures, to show the board those pictures. She was very receptive to it, and explained to her that, that we would be in contact with her with regards to removing the trees. And she's aware of it too.
Okay,
Kid-
all right,
Can I ask a question?
you may.
This is, probably stupid, but I mean, I was involved with this whole debacle back in the day.
Mhm.
Now he owns the property. He owns the trees. We are in charge of the wells. He owns the grass. He owns everything. Why isn't he taking care of the trees? It doesn't make any sense to me. He hasn't paid for anything, and he was the cause of this whole debacle.
So, excellent point. And first of all, you do have a responsibility for the monitoring wells, A, B, and C
Right.
anyway.
Absolutely.
And you've taken on responsibility for D and E. So I think as part of your responsibility, all you have to do is remove, not all, but you should remove the fallen tree that's interfering with well C, period. That's it. Nothing further. Don't wholesale take down other trees. Just get rid of that one, because you're right. The rest of it should be his responsibility. And it does seem like he's done absolutely nothing. And both the town and the state have let that slide. I don't know. Have there been attempts to get him to do his part of the work at any point in time?
I am sure, I'm pretty darn sure that nobody ever paid attention to that. Now, because I was involved, went in the court case, did all this testifying because I knew he was doing this wrong and everything. And when when the court case was done and we won, he called me and said, "You think you've won? Well, I'm closing the landfill and you're never going to be able to get here again." So, which he did, but I already knew he was going to do that. So I had already made arrangements with the company in Hopedale, and he never paid attention to any of the documents. Now, unfortunately, at almost the same time, I left the Board of Health as well,
Mhm.
and so I didn't realize until I sat down here this time and we talked about it, and I was like horrified that he hadn't done his part, because his part and the whole damn thing was his thing that he did, and not only did he do that kind of thing, were bringing trash from out of town and digging in practically in the river. He also brought pig waste and all these things into the other park that we're considering our town dump. You know,
Yep.
it's,
So when the cap was constructed and put on and the, you know, the landfill was closed, did the town close the entire thing?
yes.
Or did he close his portion of it?
He must have closed his because I know
Okay.
we had Shea Engineering do ours. They did the design for our part. I don't know who did. I thought Guerriere did his part. I don't know because I never, you know, I was never part of the equation again. Which like took a year anyway to get everything, you know, settled and put together and so.
Yep. So, right, so, because in 1982, he was ordered to, you know, to properly close his part, and the town was ordered to properly close their
Right.
portion, and that document remains good. It's, you know, you were supposed to maintain and test for 30 years after closure, and it appears that the closure was approved in 1983, at least approved in 1983. And then, you know, 30 years thereafter of testing, because the closure was supposed to be completed by July 1st, 1983. It appears that it must have been. And then, you know, monitoring went on, and then Mendon was like, hey, we want to stop doing this. And, you know, well, actually, before that, there was the whole issue of the failure to do the monitoring that DEP came after the town for, but never involved
Right.
the other owner at all. Never involved Ferrucci. I think, you know, there's one memo that shows somebody at DEP went out on the site and talked to, you know, the wife of the deceased former owner, and her
Right.
information was incorrect and inaccurate. But beyond that, I don't see anything where anybody has tried to involve Ferrucci. And I think that, you know, to the extent that it's fine if you want to consolidate the monitoring, that's okay. I don't think that's a big deal, but responsibility for the cap and closure remains, you guys do your piece, and it's up to him to do his piece. And I wouldn't even stick my nose in it, frankly. I would do what you need to do on A, B, and C. And if you need to get access to do it, we'll get an access agreement for you to do it. But if there are problems with D and E, that goes back to this order, and that's on Ferrucci, and they've got to stay on top of that. And I don't think you should even try to stay on top of it.
Okay, Karen, I just,
Yep.
the first thing that I'm thinking about, is, and Tom, correct me, we were talking about the access agreement that was it Atlas that proposed it?
Yeah, Jennifer wrote up that
And
access agreement.
when we read what they proposed, and it's $1,500, I believe, for
Yep.
us to enact it,
To enable that agreement, so
Right.
they can, yeah.
is on the second page, I believe, the property owner has a right to say no to this access agreement. So we're like, well, if we're gonna spend $1,500 of the taxpayers' money to draw up this agreement, and we send it out, and the Ferrucci family, whoever the representative is, says no, we didn't get anywhere.
We just didn't want to see us waste $1,500 if they would possibly do that. And right along, they've been very cooperative with regard to the access that's been required to do the testing all these years.
Plus, because they haven't had to pay.
Well, yes, I'm
Right.
just, for whatever reason,
Right.
they haven't denied anyone access to do the work, to do the testing of the wells and so forth that's been done by Atlas. That's simply been handled by a phone call. They would simply call them up typically get an answering machine, leave a message saying, hi, this is Atlas. We're coming out on such and such a date to do testing. If you have any concerns or problems, let us know. And then
Yep.
it typically would be an issue that the team would come out, do their testing, and no problem. It might have been a couple of occasions where Cynthia might have called back and said, hey, can you make it another date because they had some event going on because they ran a dance studio, which I think
Right.
they still do, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they ran a dance studio on the premises, so there was a lot, be events and so forth, a lot of people that would come with their kids and stuff, so. But other than that, it always went along pretty smoothly, so we never had any negativity from them in trying to accomplish what we needed to accomplish from that standpoint. Now that we've discovered there are deficiencies on the property with regard to the landfill itself, that raised the question, oh, and that's where it came up, is that really the responsibility of the town of Mendon? Given that it's private property, and that's why our highway department hesitated in doing any kind of work because they wanted to make sure that before they did any work to fix anything that we see, they want to make sure we had the legal authority to do just that.
Would it be beneficial for us to reach out to this Cynthia prior to having the agreement drafted and see if she's gonna be willing to sign it?
So is it Atlas so sorry, I looked at the Atlas services agreement, not the, not an access agreement. I'm just checking my email. So, Atlas is charging you $1,500 to create an access agreement and then.
Right, they've given us a draft.
Okay,
Jack, do you have that document that could be brought up?
It's just
I
that
don't have access to my files on this computer.
on the second page, I believe it was, there was a box that they could check that they don't want to participate in this access agreement, and
right.
where
So-
would we be then?
So then you'd probably have to either go to court or ask DEP for an order, or, go back and explain to them, look, we're doing work that you're supposed to be doing, we want access. Atlas is just covering their backside. If you send me the access agreement, I may tweak it and try to make it more of a fait accompli, but look, it's private property. Regardless of the order, regardless of anything, the courts have been pretty clear that, a private property owner has a right to keep people off their property, unless there are certain conditions, certain situations. So I want to be respectful of the private property rights. And that's probably why Atlas wants to have, a written record of access. And I don't blame them for that. I think it's a good idea to have something like that in the file. It doesn't have to come from Atlas. It can come from the town, and it can be broader than Atlas. It can be, we want access to the property to do, ongoing repair and maintenance, testing, and things like that. And you could get it signed off and not have an end date, or have a, we'll come back to you in 5 years if we need to, or something like that, and have it go for a good period of time. I think that's another approach to take that might be, Atlas, take your $1,500 and, we're going to work this out with our council.
Absolutely.
It's
That
up
may
to
be more
you.
direct and a better approach.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely, that's
great.
I was gonna ask whether or not it would be more beneficial. I personally think to have council draft that access agreement than Atlas.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
I've drafted many access agreements. I'd like to see the Atlas one.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing I can guess, some of what it looks like, and I can put one together for you for, a lot less than $1,500.
I guess again, on the second page where the property owner had the right to check no, I think that's what we found very concerning. And Tom, in discussions with the DEP, this could essentially go on forever.
Right.
There really is no end date to monitoring this thing, and if anything, the rules are getting more strict
Yep.
in landfills that are being, currently closed.
Yep.
So there's gonna be some sort of monitoring, testing, responsibility.
Inspections as well.
Yeah, to
Yep.
the point where none of us could put a date on it.
That's right.
And if, where the senior members of this family have now passed away, very concerned if the property were to change owners, where we would stand legally, because obviously we have an obligation based on that 1982 agreement that could go on forever, regardless of who owns the property.
Yep, agreed. I think that's right.
It sounds
And
like that 1982 letter, Karis, is, from your perspective, is pretty much a pretty solid legal foundation under which we're basing the responsibility. Is that right?
yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. It is pretty clear that DEP, I'll call them DEP now, was asked to allocate the responsibility. I mean, it says in the first paragraph, the issue is who is going to be responsible for closing the dump, and closing the dump also means ongoing maintenance, repair of the dump as well. And obviously that's become more complex and more sophisticated since 1982, right? So,
I think
So,
that's
yeah.
the approach we should take. I
Well,
would
just
concur. that-
let's be very clear about what the dump is and what his part was, because he was dumping in, he was bringing trash from Boston and all this thing and these big 18 wheelers and all that sort of stuff onto the other side, C and D, or I mean, D and E. And so that is totally his responsible, in my opinion, to be tested, to be done, paid for, blah, blah, blah. Because that wasn't ours. That was not ours at all. That's why I mean, the reason that this whole thing happened was because he started to bringing trash from out of town, and I went and said to him, you can't do that. And he said, this is my land. I can do anything I want. I said, no, you can't. And, bing, bam, boom, we ended up going to court, and it was like, okay, we won. And then, he closed the landfill right then and there and said, this is my landfill, I'm closing it. And
Yeah,
you're
I
not
mean,
gonna-
it's clear that DEP understood that he owned the whole thing, and that, and that the town only utilized a portion of the facility, and he owned and utilized the remainder of the facility, and that's why it determined the severance between A, B, C, and D and E. So, the final decision essentially says, the town operated a dump in those areas, thus it gets to close it, even though it doesn't actually own the land. And
Do you
that, and that's what matters.
Do you think that there should be some sort of a deed reference on the, memorializing, that the fact that it was operated as a landfill, and there's a 1982 agreement and the responsibility of the parties, just, moving forward for like future owners, so that we don't have to continuously, approach either an access agreement or explain ourselves, and that future, purchases of the property would be aware of this, so that the town doesn't have, that gap in its time to be able to maintain the property in accordance with the agreement?
Yeah, a deed restriction would be between the, the Ferrucci's and the any new owner. And the town doesn't really have any authority to require that.
Mhm.
DEP, now might have the authority to require something like that. Could the town record the order against the addresses? Sure, nothing's stopping you from doing that. And anybody doing their due diligence would then see the order. I mean, anybody doing their due diligence and who does it well should be checking old files and figuring out what the use of the land is. They're going to see monitoring wells. They're going to do an environmental assessment of the property. They certainly should be. They should have some sense of what's there, and they should come to the Board of Health and or DEP to take a look. Will they? It depends on who's buying the property, whether it's a sophisticated buyer or not. Because nobody's going to be developing that property any further. It's not allowed to be developed any further because you can't disturb the cap. So yeah, there should be some sort of restriction now that I think about it, but it's not up to the town to do that.
Well,
They
what
don't
we
own the
did,
property.
what we did do a little while back is we did have conversations with our assessor's office.
Yep.
And when we looked at the property to look at the assessor's card that was on file, it really, it had a very, what I would call kind of an inaccurate reference for what the property was used for.
Yep.
It referenced something about a rear parcel of land being used for landfill. And then the reality is, and actually stated in court documents, every bit of that land was used for a landfill. I think was
Right.
the actual quote.
It says portion of rear land is a quote capped landfill, is what it says.
Well, actually, so that's actually what's on the last, or the 2024 card. And that, we tried to get that changed, but unfortunately we didn't get it to it in time, because they, up until like December 1st, you, after that, you can't change any records because of DOR requirements. So
Mhm.
no information can change about any property. But moving forward, what our assessor did was they're now quoting or referencing the 2025 cards for people who might contact them about property.
Okay.
And we now have a new note that's now in the 2025 assessor card that is a little more complete statement about the land being used for a landfill, and the requirement, the DEP requirement for testing and inspection is kind of
Okay.
part of the new note.
And that, so that old note was only on 28. Is the new note on 28 and 26?
Only on 28, because 26, well, see, 26 is a separate property owned by somebody else right now. It's a different piece of property.
It was a Ferrucci property.
Yes.
the
At
yeah,
one time,
back
yeah,
in the day.
it
Yeah.
was,
It,
yeah.
it wasn't, okay, you sent me both cards, so it was not part of the landfill at any
No, it was a
time.
piece of land that was cut off and one of the sons built a residence on it.
Okay, all right, great.
So it's
Well, then-
adjacent to the landfill.
That's fine. Then you don't need to worry about it. Then I think what you've done with respect to 28 is great. That's should be sufficient to put anybody on notice. If you don't check the assessor's card when you're doing a real estate transaction, buyer beware.
More fool you.
But do you think that we should record the order though? Should the town record that order just so that it's memorialized? Because it was never recorded. I went back on the Registry of Deeds website and went back in time, and I can't say I was surprised, because we know that these things happen, and especially, back then they weren't as diligent maybe as we are now, but that it was never recorded. There was not even the DEP. I don't know that or DEQE would have recorded it at that time, but
No, they
there's
don't
nothing
record.
there.
Yeah, there's no order to record it, but whether or not, the registry allows the town to record it, I don't see why they wouldn't. I don't think it's, I guess the only question, and I have that decision as attached to a memorandum from your town council at the time. I would not record the memo. I would make sure that you just obviously severed the decision. Let me think about whether or not there's any reason why the current owners could suggest that there were, that doing so, impaired the value of their land, which the fact is the fact. It doesn't change the fact. Making the notice as public as that, I don't know. I just want to just want to have somebody in my firm do a little research before you do that. And it doesn't make any difference at this point. So don't rush off to do it. Let me ask somebody to look into whether somebody could, I just don't want you to, I don't want you to have any claims, and I don't want you to undercut the good working relationship. You've got notice on the assessor's cards, you control those. I think that's fair for the first part. And we'll think about the rest of it.
Because when they sell the house, which apparently isn't it for sale? Isn't it? They're talking about it. I think they're talking about selling it. Because I know Lonnie was thinking about buying it and putting over 55 development there. That entire piece is under order of the DEP, the piece that's our piece and the piece that's their piece, but that land
Right.
all belongs to them.
Yeah, no, and there's a permanent closure, and that stuff usually can't get dug up.
Correct.
So, yes, there is some building allowed on previously contaminated sites, but it would really depend. And DEP would have to be brought in to the process. So it's not so simple as just buying land and sticking, 10 townhouses on it. That's never
Right.
going to happen. I
Right.
don't think.
Okay, so at this point, Jack will forward you Atlas's proposed access agreement.
Yep.
And then we'll wait to hear from you how to proceed.
Yep. I will work on the access agreement first, because I think you need to get access, so that when is your next round of sampling?
We just had it done in December, so probably March.
I think
Okay.
March is the next upcoming.
Yeah,
And it-
well, March is only
Few
15
weeks away.
days away.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we'll have a conversation with Cynthia
Yeah, I can give her a call.
about getting permission to take care of that tree removal.
Yep.
So that well can be accessed.
Is it verbal okay, Karis, or should we wait for the access agreement?
No, I'm comfortable with verbal on this. I think it's pretty clear what you're trying to do, and you've had a long history of verbal access, but I think it's fair to everybody to be clear, about long-term access. So let's get it in writing, but I'm okay with verbal for the tree. And I'm okay with verbal for what Atlas has been doing. I understand why they're trying to do what they're trying to do.
What about for, as far as having the highway department, remove them? Is that something that,
Well, the tree, I don't know if the highway department would even want to touch that,
Mhm.
especially this time of year. Because the ground is very soft, and obviously they're not gonna wanna bring a heavy piece of equipment in there. So we may end up having to hire an outside licensed and insured tree company.
Yep.
That's gonna put the right pads down, so that when they use the equipment to remove that, they're not doing any damage to the property.
Mhm.
Wouldn't the ground be firmer now than softer?
Ground's not, there's no frost in the ground.
It's,
As I
yeah,
It has to be hard frost would be the only consideration for.
Yeah,
been
there's
no
been
hard freeze this
nothing.
year at all.
And there was very little
Crazy.
last year.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think that yeah, and I don't know whether, somebody from highway or DPW can go in there with a chainsaw and, a lighter truck and, at least get the tree out of the way of the well, chop it up and get it out of the way. I don't know.
So we don't necessarily have to remove it. We just have to make safe access to the well.
That's right.
Right.
You don't
Yeah,
have to
okay, that's a
remove it.
different
You just,
story.
you just wanna, it's not, right? You're asking for access to essentially, move the tree so that you can access the well, but you don't necessarily need to remove it off of the site. It's their tree.
Right.
Okay, well,
There you go.
that
Now
gives
you're
us a little
talking
more,
my
a little more
language.
wiggle room.
Right.
Instead of,
Just move it out of the way.
right.
Yeah. I don't want you to spend a ton of money moving their tree. I want you to get the access you need so it's safe and secure.
Right.
But beyond that, it's their tree.
It
Okay.
is their tree, exactly.
The town's liability insurance would cover the highway department for any work they did on this property? I know that's a concern.
Yes, I'm
Okay,
comfortable that they would, because
Okay.
they're doing work within the scope of their duties, which is providing access so that the town can exercise its legal responsibilities.
okay.
Even though it's on private property, I, I believe they would be covered.
Okay, so, just to repeat myself, Jack will forward you Atlas's proposed access agreement. We'll reach out to Cynthia and, get verbal permission to, remove the tree to the extent that we can gain safe access to that monitoring well. And we'll wait to hear from you.
Okay,
We
Great.
meet twice a month, so whatever works for you. And obviously, like you mentioned, March is around the corner.
yeah, I'll work on that access agreement and try to get that back to Jack, shortly. I have a trial next week, so if I can squeeze it in between now and Friday before I'm really buried in trial prep, I will do that. If I can't, it will be the end of the month. And then, you know, I will also take a look at the issue about recording the deed, or recording the decision, and see if there's any, if there's any concerns with doing that. But I think you've got people on notice now anyway, so you're probably fine. But it's an, we'll take a quick look. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it.
Okay, so
All right.
anybody else have anything else for Karis?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Karis,
Thank
thank
you,
you
Karis.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're-
Karis.
You're very welcome. Happy Valentine's Day, all.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Cynthia's.
Who is Cynthia?
Manic.
She's the owner.
Oh, she's the daughter of,
Manick.
right, that's Dolly
Yep.
Dimple's daughter. That-
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
'cause she was a dean. And,
Yeah, I've had a few decent
Oh,
conversations.
that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
much rather have it be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
well, she doesn't have the same thing that they did. They were gonna be losing money and they.
Yeah.
Right, and like Kara said, all they have to do is go on a chainsaw and just push it back, because
Yeah, well,
that's
see,
it.
That's a different
Yep.
story, other than, I mean, trying to remove, I mean, that's a
Mm.
big tree and it almost
Yeah.
looked like it may have bent the well a little
It
bit.
did. It
Yeah,
did.
it did. It
well-
looks like that, yeah.
We may have to replace that well,
Yeah.
Right,
you know?
but they could cut it, or,
Ahead,
and just
well
push
ahead
it.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just push it out of the way so then we can get a
We
better
have to
look.
wait for the testing people to tell us
Yeah.
Mhm.
whether or not they may be able to still use it. I don't
Right.
know. But obviously we want to make sure that John knows that his team is covered.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that John knows that we have verbal permission and the town council said that was sufficient.
Yep,
And then he can go look at it and accept and assess it as to when a good time to do it is. I mean, I'm seeing guys dropping off 30-yard dumpsters
Mm.
and they're getting stuck everywhere.
yep,
I mean, those,
Yep.
I can't believe how fast those big trucks are getting stuck, and that's without the dumpster on the truck.
exactly.
I saw another one up at Old Man Daniel's farm just this week. The guy went to turn around on the lawn, thought everything was good, and I mean, that's not pristine lawn, it's farm lawn. And next thing you know, he's got a 50-ton record pulling them out.
Yep.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's a big drill.
Oh, yeah.
That's like,
So you want to communicate to highway department? You want
Well-
that to be on just a formal email, so it's in writing, so that
Yeah,
we're,
I would say the first thing to do is to reach out to Cynthia
I'll do that in the morning.
and get a verbal from her.
Mhm.
Because like Kara said, there's already a precedent set.
Yep.
That a phone call or an answering machine message and then something comes back. So because that precedent has been set, she's obviously comfortable with us continuing with that. The access agreement would make that almost not necessary
Mhm.
and would protect us if the land were to change hands. So we can proceed the way we are now. I would say after that conversation and after that verbal okay, then we do it in writing to the highway department.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean just because we did it in writing to the highway department that they say they can do it. They could very well come back and say they can't, and then we need to hire an outside contractor.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we don't have to go that route.
Mhm.
I mean, John may say, listen, I can't do it the month of February. I don't think the ground is gonna allow me to even go over there with a light machine.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty confident that maybe I could do it in March. Well, we can wait.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, they obviously did the round of testing and just skipped that well.
Mhm.
But as long as if we were questioned by DEP as to why there's no results for that well, we could show that it was in process.
Mhm.
You've got a great relationship with them. I don't think they did it.
But I mean, we're not having to take that whole tree out of there.
Mm-mm.
We're only gonna take it so that they,
They have safe access, right?
yeah, yeah.
Just talking
Right.
about cutting up a section of it
Yeah.
and then removing.
Right.
Yeah, it looked
In
that section.
like a pretty hefty diameter.
The
Right.
rest of it could kind of lay where it is. as far as-
Right, exactly.
Well,
It's not our tree.
just
Right.
keep in mind that whatever work is done there, we probably should do a little more space than what we think, just in case they have to get a vehicle in there in the future to do work on the well.
Mhm.
Right, yeah.
So we need access for a small amount of equipment to get around that well, not just a person.
Mhm.
Because if not, we're gonna be sending John back there.
Again, just
Right.
second visit, yeah.
You know, so maybe we need that stuff, away, a 12 or 15 foot diameter.
Radius, yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Just in case they had to get some kind of a small, 1 ton rig in
Right.
there
Mhm.
in the future to do work on the well where the well has been.
Yep.
I don't want to bother John twice.
Yeah.
For the same
Right.
problem. We've got other things down there that obviously we're gonna have to take care of. That catch basin and some of those depressions, if they're on A, B, and C, they're ours to take care of.
Which they are.
So I wanna make sure we fully explain that to John. So that do a little more. Don't find out later on that we didn't do enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could, have certainly a discussion with them, but have it in writing so that it's kind of laid out in case people change as to what has been conversed with
Need a
here
paper.
with Karis. And what she's basically saying is that 1982 letter is the legal basis for the responsibility moving forward. So the town is responsible for A, B, and C,
Mhm.
no matter what's needed, whether it's repair work, whether it's additions, no matter what, the town has the obligation and the responsibility for A, B, and C.
Right.
That's just flat out
Stand.
a given.
It just stand.
Right, and I think it makes sense for the testing to be continued to be done on all the wells.
So therein lies the one variable, if we wanted to, and if we figured it out monetarily, we did talk before about this, whether or not it was even worth it to figure out for the couple of wells that are on what we think of their parcels versus the towns. Is it even worth it to try to pull that out of the picture? Hey, you need to go to Cynthia or the landowner for the testing of that. It probably isn't worth it.
Yeah, and I think it would make the relationship that you've developed with DEP.
I just think it's better to
Little
keep
tenuous.
it. I mean, I don't know if you've calculated in your head or figured it out what
It's gotta be
difference
minimal.
might be.
You
It
could
sounds
just
like
ask
it'd be minimal.
Atlas, if we only had 3 monitoring wells, what's the cost as opposed to 5?
You're basically taking the cost divided by 5.
Right.
But I honestly don't think any of the wells on that map are in D&E. I don't think there are any wells on D&E at all,
Oh, it's
period.
possible. And
And I think D&E, like here's the house, D&E are behind the property, the rear landfill property.
The only one that could be is that one in the upper left corner. I took that video.
Yeah.
I forget what number that was. That may be reflective of what might be testing that component, that corner
Yeah,
of D&E, because D&E were together. They were conjoining.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it, they kind of went along this way in the back part. So that well setup over there could have just been sufficient enough for capturing what they wanted to, for flow
Right.
coming out of there.
I think at this time, that's a fight I don't want to fight.
Mhm.
I would agree.
I mean, if we got a good line of communication going right now with the
Yeah.
person that's presently living there. let's keep that going. Trying to capture a small amount of money.
Yeah,
at
I don't
this
think it'd be
late
worth it.
date. If we lose that line of communication, it'll cost us more in the end.
Mhm.
Well, the other thing too is that Ferrucci's keeping up with the landscaping of the grass mowing on their.
Well, that's right. That's a really
Yeah.
good point. Regardless of how this has gone, they've consistently kept the property mowed.
Mhm.
Now, granted, the wood line is slowly creeping
Correct.
in, and that's what forest does. But it's not like we're having to chase them to
Right.
mow the place. So let's,
Mhm.
move forward. Again, I would hate to lose that line of communication. Because it'll make us for us to do what we need to do.
All for that.
I agree.
All right, so with that,
Yep, I'll do it tomorrow morning.
and contact Cynthia.
Yep.
Which is great. I'm glad you guys, have that conversation with her already. And the next thing to do would, be to present it to John. And the scope of the work that we feel needs to be done. And see what we get back from him as to whether or not he can do it and when he thinks is a good time to do it.
Mhm.
And I would want to make John aware that specifically from a legal perspective, what town council is saying, that specifically that letter. And if I want to show John, give him a copy of it. But that letter is the foundation for the legal decision being made. And what Karis is saying is the way that would have to go. The town is responsible for these 3 areas of the land.
That's a DEQE letter.
That's the DEQE 1982 letter. That's
right.
what she's
Yeah.
talking about.
Right.
That
That's,
defined.
that's the
court,
order.
not the DEQ.
Yeah, the court order.
Yep.
Court letter.
Yeah, court order.
Yep.
Those are our matching
Yeah, the
orders.
court decision, actually,
That, the
right?
decision, the court decision
Decision.
that defined the areas of responsibility. Ferrucci had responsibility for these 2 and the town had responsibility
Right,
for these
and
3.
if, when we get to that point, if John wants a copy of that for his
Records.
files.
Sure.
By all means, we'd supply that to him.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing also is Kara said that the town's liability insurance would cover us.
Mhm.
Correct.
All right, so he's insured to
Mhm.
do what he needs to do there. He doesn't have to worry
Mhm.
about any liability, which is really important. So that's how we'll proceed on that
Okay.
at this time. Thank you for everybody sticking with this. All right, next item, if nobody has anything, the fiscal year budget for 2025 updates.
All right, so for the budget proposal that I prepared for the Board of Health, I did make the suggested updates. I have divided the municipal trash against the subscriber total and put that under the municipal service expenses. As you can see, municipal trash is $18,700. I have taken that away from the subscriber trash collection total.
Good.
Let's see here.
Where was that highlighted, Jack? Oh, I see it. Never mind.
Yeah,
18,
it's on- it's on the
18,
very-
18.7 is what we rounded it.
Yeah, 18,700,
Okay,
and that's for fiscal year 2025.
Okay.
Um. The Board of Health. Revolving account name has been changed and it is now updated. We do have it as the engineering/inspector revolving account now. So it's not
What
considered
page are
the.
you on there?
6.
This is on
Down the bottom, see the page number?
page 10. So the Board of Health no longer has a BOH Title V revolving account. We have an engineering inspector account. Revolving. And those were the 2 updates that I have done.
Page 10 on mine is subscriber trash collection, subscriber trash disposal.
That's what mine is 10, is that too.
Correct.
You were talking
I
about.
was talking about the engineering, I thought.
Yeah,
No, so the engineering, because this is revolves the, oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. I'm confusing the two. The engineering fees,
okay.
engineering fees, on page number 5,
Page 5?
page 5.
Okay, yep.
So engineering fees, that's no longer using or valid for the revolving account. We have our new revolving account, the engineering and. And below, that's our current status for what we have in the account right now.
Okay. Fine with that.
Yeah, we're on the plus.
We're on the plus.
But it's interesting, we took in 9 and we expended a little over 10.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna make the assumption that the revolving account is doing its job,
Correct.
because obviously some of our expenses were probably prior year collected fees,
Correct.
which is what we were trying to do. So it's always nice when we try to do something that it works.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if we want to talk about the enterprise fund because the warrant's coming up.
Well, just before we
Next
go,
month.
just before we go to that
Yes.
topic, so just on the budget itself,
Yep.
I noticed,
First page now, right?
what's
Have
that?
the green sheet. Yep.
Yep, okay.
On this, yeah, on this sheet, I was just comparing that to this, the book.
Yep.
Okay. So, under salaries and wages,
Yes.
on the one-page sheet, it had the 30,000 figure,
Yes.
and on the icon for salaries, wages, we got 60.
It's the total. That's the total of the
Tally,
budget
got it.
itself.
Never mind. Thank you. Thank you.
No, good eyes, because I've been going back and forth like, oh, I missed this and oh, I missed that. So
Yeah, I'd like
Nope,
to know
I got
how
it.
that got split in half.
And that is yeah, so we had this discussion before, and Colleen mentioned it about salaries. So it's essentially half of your salary in this category and another half is in the,
when I spoke with Jody, when me and Colleen were having our budget meeting, she asked, why isn't your salaries in the budget? I've gone past previous budgets, like what Missy has done, and salaries is not part of it. It was in the town hall administration
Yeah.
budget.
And I remember that,
Yeah.
that's the way it was.
right? Yeah.
It was
And
never
so-
broken out.
When I went to go see Kim before she left to show me how the budget works, she says, oh, we're moving stuff around. Your budget's now gonna be part of salaries of Board of Health and inspectional services. Like, okay, so 35 hours Board of Health and 5 hours for inspectional services. But when Jody showed me, she goes, no, it's 20 hours Board of Health and 20 hours inspectional services. I'm like, am I only supposed to be doing 20 hours for Board of Health? And nobody told me what to be doing with inspectional services.
So are you saying that, so because you have a dual description, that a portion of your salary is being allocated here
Correct.
and a portion of your salary is being allocated somewhere else?
Inspectional services budget line, yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I have no problem with that,
No,
as long as, just like when we hired Jack, it's 35 hours for Board of Health. Because I don't think you could do the job with any less hours.
Mm-mm. Not the way you do it. You do such a perfect job.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I think the only reason,
now, don't get him a swelled head.
but I think the only reason.
I need
that
it.
I do
we've
too.
been
I'm with,
Successful with Jack working 40 hours is there hasn't, that inspectional services piece, I don't feel has really kicked in yet.
No, well, I did ask Kim, I'm like, what am I supposed, when we talked about it, my budget last year, I said, what are my duties as inspectional services part? She goes, we'll get to that later. But then she left and I've asked Gail, I'm like, Gail, is there something you want to train me in? So when you're on anything, I can learn it and do it for you. She goes, no, let's wait on that.
Yeah, I remember what the intention was when they bumped the job from 35 to 40. But I don't think it was ever put into play. Because we had too many staff members leaving.
Mhm.
So wasn't enough consistency down there for you to focus on that 5 hours of the inspectional services piece. So I have no problem if they want to break the budget out that way.
Mhm.
And if they want to break the budget out that way, from what we've talked about, that 5%
Mhm.
that's trash, well, that would be 5% of 30.
Mhm.
So this number is reflective of 30,
That is strictly Board of Health Administration, 33,325. That's just my
That's
20 hours.
50%.
how much percent?
50%.
That's 50%.
Yes, 20 hours a week. So 50% of my salary.
Okay, because of what, okay. But was it designed to be a 50-50 split?
No,
though?
it wasn't. It was 35-5.
Right.
Because I asked Jody and Jody's like, I was never informed what Kim was planning on doing with this. She was not in the loop.
Yeah.
So we don't know what Kim was planning and
And I
Yeah,
get the impression it was done on the way out. That's the impression I have.
It was,
I
yeah, I
have
hear
the
you.
wrong impression.
Well, should that be corrected now?
Jody said leave it for now because of the budget, so close to becoming closed. She goes, it's fine the way it is.
Okay,
It's not a big deal.
okay. I just feel you look at it and as a layperson, it's like, oh, the administrator's only making $30,000?
Right, but think about this for a second. Okay, if 5% is working on the trash program, 5% of that 20 hours, 5% of that 30,000, that's where we get that indirect cost,
Mhm.
right? Math is math.
Mhm.
If that's what we're being held to,
Right,
okay?
great.
And I'd like to amend something I'd mentioned since you raised it in the last meeting. I think I alluded to the fact that I could understand Jack's salary or portion being reflective toward the program. I want to take that back because I'd be going against my original view that costs from the other building or salaries in general, I don't, at the moment, I do not believe should be looked or potentially looked at as an added cost coming in if we were to go the route of an enterprise fund for the program. Only because I believe the salaries are already factored in to what the taxpayers are paying for elsewhere.
Well, and it's what,
However, I went back over the meeting, our last meeting, and you made an interesting statement that caught my ear that didn't catch my ear before. And that was with reference to the term general fund,
Mhm.
that the monies currently now, and I never thought of it this way, all the monies are in the exception of any revolving account or enterprise fund. All the monies from the budget perspective are in the general fund.
Mhm.
I had never looked at it that way before. And to her point, if we take the monies out of the general fund and put them into whether it be a revolving account or an enterprise fund, we're taking out monies that are no longer in the town side of the accounting. So then I guess that thought would be that if the town knows there's monies, if the accounting people know there's monies there, it's that thought of the monies being there that are addressing the salary portion of the people. Is that actually correct?
Mhm.
So maybe light dawns on Marblehead. So I am I'm still but I understand what when she said general fund, it kind of clicked. I was, oh, maybe there's
as far as salaries go, I still kind of have a problem with trying to capture indirect costs.
I understand. Yeah.
However, because I mean, those people have to be in play regardless. And they have to be in play for X number of hours based on how they were hired. They were hired part-time, they were hired hourly, they were hired full-time. So whether there's something to that needs to be processed or something that doesn't need to be processed, they still have to be present. Okay, I mean, it's just like having firefighters. You need to have a staff of firefighters, whether there's a fire or not. It's insurance that if something
Something
goes wrong,
happens, you'll be there.
they're there.
Mhm.
So they could be doing any number of things related to the fire service that have nothing to do with responding to an emergency. Maintaining the trucks, going out, doing inspections, doing a demonstration at a school. But they're hired to be full-time firefighters.
Yeah, the salary doesn't go up and down depending on the amount of tasks that they have.
Right.
This is their role. So just like you said, if you take away that function, do they have a reduction in their salary because you took a step away? No. Well,
So,
anyway,
but we gotta follow the rules.
Hmm.
The enterprise account, because of the size of the money,
yeah,
the enterprise account has rules that need to be followed
Hmm.
on everybody's behalf. So though that's what we have to do, then that's what we'll do.
so now with regard to the discussion of enterprise fund, I know since our last meeting, there was a desire to have some conversations with some people.
Mhm.
I didn't know if those conversations had taken place,
I
and what we
had a
might have
meeting
learned from them.
with Jody. She saw me without a scheduled appointment. And we had a discussion and she explained to me that and it was 2 days before Jack went
The
in.
budget meeting.
I went in on a Wednesday, Jack went in on a Friday following. It's really the dollar amount, even though we don't have assets, that dictates an enterprise account because it's such a large dollar number.
Mhm.
And then there are the rules. Now, the way it was expressed to me, if I have it correctly, is she and Eric were more interested in capturing the indirect costs related to Jack's salary
Mhm.
versus the tax collector's salary, which was a little different than how I understood it when we got that email.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. However, they were hoping that the number was still gonna come out almost like a wash, which I don't see how that math's not gonna work out that way. And we discussed that I would have a meeting with Jody and Eric in the very near future. I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay.
And we would kind of go over and go through this stuff because we have to have an agreement
Mhm.
on those indirect costs. And both sides have to be in agreement. Not that that agreement can't change down the road, but as Colleen pointed out, once we agree to this, it's a 3-year minimum hitch.
Mhm.
So, in order to iron all that stuff out and find out exactly how exact Eric on the accounting side was trying to be with that particular item, we were gonna have a meeting, and like I said, that hasn't taken place yet. But because of the time constraint on getting on the warrant, proceed with getting it on the warrant.
Mhm.
Because at town meeting, we can always say we want to pass over.
Castle.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's what I was gonna say.
We got to get on the warrant.
Right.
Absolutely.
I have the warrant article written. I'll give it to Jack tomorrow and we can submit it. Just so, like you said, so that it's on the warrant.
Okay.
Would your,
Does anybody want to view it before we submit it?
well, I think you had we can look at it, but I know the
Um,
verbiage she gave us.
Right, it's pretty, it's, right,
Right,
it's two
yeah.
cent, it's,
Same thing like last time.
right,
Yeah.
it's exact, that's what I don't think I have it with me.
I've never written one.
No, I think she gave us the verbiage from last.
Right,
meeting,
Right,
and I was
I
fine.
read it at the last Board of Health meeting. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, it's not rocket science. You just have to, advise the residents that you're creating the account pursuant to, Mass General Law for the purpose of, and explain the purpose of the enterprise account.
And that's where like you said, the selling comes into
Right.
play, where you're getting up and describing the details of what that warrant article is supposed to mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, of course, then one of us has to get up and explain it.
Yeah, that'd be you. which
the-
I can, if you
you're the
want, I can give
chairman.
you a little,
Cheat sheet. Yeah, I would definitely
Yep.
have my index cards ready.
yeah.
It just shows where I came from.
It's just
You're the
it's just a
chairman.
cleaner
back to
accounting,
work.
right?
Right.
Honestly, there's no, even the explanation, I mean, it's a business and that's what this is. And it's a cleaner accounting of, the municipal
Expenses.
trash program.
Right.
And that a more accurate accounting of the municipal trash program, the receipts, the expenses that are dedicated towards, delivering the curbside trash and recycling service to the residents of Mendon.
Oh, yeah.
I take it when you do your next meeting or Jody and Eric together, would that be at that moment where you'd be looking to try to talk about the defining a policy of agreement that comes with an enterprise fund, having those conversations?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
Okay,
Jody actually mentioned working with Eric to develop almost like a Cliff Notes
Yes,
okay.
as revolving account, enterprise account.
correct.
So that we could all collaborate.
Yep.
And make sure that this is, what's gonna be right.
Yep.
For the community. I did ask the question that was presented to us way back when, we were 4, 5, 6 years ago when we were thinking about this. And we didn't know whether it was an enterprise account or a revolving account, that there was a little bit of pushback that this would affect the town's borrowing power, et cetera, because it was gonna take X number of dollars worth of receipts.
From the general fund.
Right, and she said, no.
Correct.
She said, all it is a notation.
Mhm.
The money just shifted.
Yep.
Shifted sides, the money didn't. Go
It
away.
wasn't a loss.
Right, it's almost like, if we were to decide we had a credit card that we didn't want anymore.
Mhm.
It may affect your credit rating because you have less available credit.
Mhm.
But usually there's a notation, account closed because it wasn't being used.
Mhm.
So with that being said, and your description of monies being in a general fund in a municipality, how is it that the municipality would be basing their salaries of a position? Are they really basing it on X amount of tasks that are being done, or are they looking at the role in general and whatever happens to fall into that, that's what they're doing and that's what the role encompasses?
Right, I mean, Jack and I talked about it and we kind of came down with a down and dirty number as far as what's actually allocated to just administering the trash program itself. And we said was 5%. And so that 5% would come off of, to Alan's point, that $30,000 that would be allocated into the enterprise.
To the fund.
Mhm.
I'll see what more info we get and we'll,
Yeah, right away I reported to Jack so that if anything came up on Friday's meeting, Jack would have an idea of what our conversation was.
yeah,
I really thought that I would have a meeting with Jody and Eric prior to one of our meetings so that I could do the same thing. I could let everybody know what transpired, but this was sort of just an introduction because Jody and I really had never had a one-on-one conversation.
right.
And I actually started the conversation off by apologizing to her for not saying thank you for helping us through not having an administrator.
Mhm.
I worked closely with Tracy. I worked closely with Ellen, getting the, agendas posted. We had phone conversations, group phone conversations with Kim, or she would dial into one of our meetings. So it was easy to say thank you to all the people that were upfront and familiar. But Jody was there, trying to figure out the billing and,
Yeah.
and the whole bit as to how everything was working. But because it was in the background, I forgot that thank you. So I'm glad that when she came to our meeting, she brought up what she was doing that I was aware of, but not part of.
Mhm.
So that's actually how I started the meeting off, because it deserves a thank you. I mean, we were very fortunate that, we all had other things going on.
Mhm.
We didn't have as active support staff like we do now.
Mhm.
because we used a lot of contractors.
Right.
So they were only here when something was going on. So, you know, we were very fortunate to get through that bump in the road.
Yeah.
And come out the other side. We had just kind of got through the COVID era.
Did we get through it yet?
I'm hoping. All right, so it's, the decision has been made that we'll submit the, enterprise account to the warrant.
I think we
Yep,
should,
article.
because we can always
Yeah,
Right.
pass it over. If we
Okay.
decide it's not, but.
Right.
yeah.
but we got our placeholder.
Yep.
And in the meantime, in the background, we can get the i's dotted and the t's crossed.
Was there a second or third warrant that you mentioned might also be needed for some variable? That also had to be done in the form of a warrant? I might have maybe,
For the
I
enterprise
might be
account?
misremembering. I thought there was another aspect of something we talked about, and I thought you had mentioned, oh, that would also have to be a warrant article.
I think that's like paying the bills or moving money.
No, if you ever wanted to use the retained earnings,
From the enterprise. fund.
correct,
For-
that would
for
be a
purpose.
warrant article.
That would be the warrant.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we had some retained earnings that we wanted to use to lower
The
next
subscribe,
billing for the
that's correct.
subscriber, we have to make sure we get on the warrant
Mhm.
for town meeting or for special town meeting.
And that's when I think I mentioned about the timing. So, but you mentioned that it would just be a delay because a special town meeting would typically be happening after the first billing cycle of the trash.
Mhm.
And you'd make up for it on the back end with the second billing.
Mhm.
Well, and actually, yeah. Because even when we set the budget, we're using the numbers that.
Yeah, we're using numbers historically that we've had over the previous 2, 3 years
Mhm.
roughly, and then anticipating any known increases coming, like we know there's going to be an increase in the trash program. Right, so
Mhm.
putting that into effect, and like
Mhm.
Colleen says, there is a mechanism where we can go and look and get our actual expense
Mhm.
breakdown.
Right, and it's probably gonna be a little while. It's probably gonna be a few years before we accumulate enough retained earnings. Because we're planning a season ahead
Correct.
that we can propose an amount, a portion of it to be used. Because if we do it too fast, we could cut ourselves short.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good, yeah,
So it's one of those things that there's probably always gonna be a 6, 9, 12 month lag before it kicks in. Because we can't draw that to zero,
Mhm.
because we could get caught on the other end.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else on that?
Nope, we're good.
Anything else on the
on budget.
budget for 2025? Anybody see anything that stuck out that they had a question on?
No. Made all kinds of sense and it was done in such a nice way that it made it easy to understand.
Absolutely. He's-
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and I think one
Phenomenal.
thing that I noticed was that extra money that we allotted for the landfill.
Mhm.
So that
Yes.
that increase shows up. And if questioned, you know, or even when we go through it, we can explain
Absolutely.
to the select board why.
Well, yeah, I
Because
mean, you have,
we're anticipating,
yep, the
you know,
third party inspection report. I'm
Right.
sure of that and, and the additional
right,
monitoring.
I'm not sure how the highway, if the highway is able to do the work, how the highway gets compensated,
Mhm.
because obviously that's gonna take them away from something else, or, you know, if there's expenses there.
Mhm.
So they, you know, that they may say you don't need. to
But it
do
would
that.
be, it would be very much the same. as
Exactly.
If a tree fell down on the street.
Right. Because it's the town's responsibility. This
Right.
is the town's, it's not the town's tree, but it's the town's responsibility.
Well, we may find when we present it that they tell us we don't need to allot extra money to cover that.
I would think
No.
not, but
But no, I doubt that. I think it will just be a wash. The extra money that we put in for the budget will be for the anticipated, DEP notification
rules
of
and regs
a
and stuff.
additional
Okay,
third
not
party.
for-
No, not for
so-
that. No, for additional monitoring, and I'm sure they're gonna come back with a third party inspection.
Now,
What?
if the highway department didn't have the time or the expertise, like, let's say, to rebuild the catch basin. I know they can rebuild them, but let's just say that. And then that money would go towards the contractor we have to hire to
Correct,
do the work.
correct.
we need a vote to accept the budget.
No, like,
Okay, just checking. I want to be true and good.
the numbers haven't changed, just a matter of shifting
Right.
municipal trash away from subscriber trash.
Okay,
Which I like.
if we don't have anything else, we'll move to item 3, keeping of livestock, MDAR reporting.
All right, so I gave everybody a copy of the Department of Agricultural Resources bond book page. Alan, I found you, so I used you as the guinea pig. This is what our animal inspector uses when she does her bond inspections, when she receives the bond book from the state. This is when she goes around town and checks on everything. So I was thinking of creating a form, which is the second page, to keeping of livestock,
I saw that.
which basically outlines what the purpose of is for this keeping of livestock form. And it basically is identical to the bond book for people
Right.
to fill out. And I was thinking of attaching this, well, not attaching, but sending it with a census at the beginning of the year. It all comes in, I compile the list, and when the bond book comes in, usually in August or September, I'll
Bing,
give it to
bam,
the
boom.
animal inspector. Here's what I received in from the town.
Right.
Go for it.
Yep.
So I'm just looking for the board's comments.
Yep, I thought that was very
Yeah,
good.
no, I don't think it's ever been done in Mendon. And that's why probably a lot of people, the first time they meet the animal inspector, have no idea why we got one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great. And I mean, obviously, if anybody who's new to animal husbandry has a question, the animal inspector is a great resource,
Mm-hmm.
along with the ag committee and all of our local farmers. So it might bring some awareness to people that never really, hobbyists that never really thought about it.
Again, this isn't mandatory. This is a voluntary form.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, good job.
Unless we make it mandatory. No, I'm sure.
They might
People
think
would
it's
see the importance
mandatory.
in it.
They might think it's mandatory when they get it, so. We'll just not say anything
Yeah,
one
but it-
way or the other.
It does say voluntary. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, as someone who's a livestock owner on the board, I would defer to your thoughts on it from your perspective as a livestock owner.
I think it's great. If I were to have the animal, have a horse just in my backyard, I'd have no clue. It seems like a nice idea.
Yep.
But you don't know what you're getting into unless you grew up with them. I was very fortunate that I learned a lot from where we boarded the horse. I learned, everything from mucking a stall to, doing some medications. But if I didn't have that experienced person and a group of people watching me and helping me through it, it wouldn't have been good for the animal. It wouldn't have been good for me. So, again, especially for those hobbyists that move to the country, and I don't care if you're just trying chickens, or rabbits, you can avoid a lot of pain and aggravation, by, knowing who you can reach out to
Mhm.
if you have a problem, or, even before you have a problem is even better. And that's where the animal inspector would come in. The animal inspector may come in and you think you're doing fine, but they can give you some suggestions
Mhm.
on how to do it a little better.
exactly.
So they can prevent a heartbreak.
Right.
And that's really what they're trying to do.
Mhm.
So I think it's a great idea. And again, in my 30-something years, I've never seen anything like this in town. So I think it's a great thing. And, you know, you never know. I mean, the ag committee might like this information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're applying for some kind of a grant,
Yeah,
something like that.
Good
They,
point.
they have a more accurate head count, so to speak, of the livestock in town and the variation of livestock in town. It could help, you know, educational grants, things like that. It could help them access some of that stuff if we have a better count.
Mhm.
Because I think there's a lot of a lot of animals being missed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all I have for that.
Good job.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about our next one? Now, I have a lot of fabric, you know, that's like cuttings up of my fabric for when I'm making the quilts, and my class will throw their fabric in my bag. Can I call them to pick that up?
Yeah, I don't see why not, because what they'll most likely do is use it for rags.
Right, yeah, well, some of it's not even, but my understanding is sometimes they like shred it.
Right, make insulation.
Yeah, so, okay, so if I just call that number down the bottom. And I maybe will see if I can, because so many people in my class are from other towns. They never heard that they couldn't be putting the fabric in the trash.
All the textiles, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with the relationship we have with Yale.
Absolutely.
Mike.
And that's November 1st. That law went in November 1st.
Mike has always been giving us information a year, 18 months in advance of what's coming down the pike.
Right,
So as a Board of Health, we've been very fortunate to have that. Because we know before the day
Mhm.
what's happening, how things are changing.
But I think the board, you guys as a whole also have, a pulse on your community. You know, not all boards of health are as active and as invested in their community as you three are.
Well, thank you. I mean,
Definitely.
we have a good team.
And it does make a difference. And something like what Joyce just
Right.
said shows you just how important it is for that, to have that connection with your community.
right.
Yeah.
It's vital.
When we talked with this gentleman, he was really good. So I think, I don't think he'll have any problem.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is because the others haven't really got into it, I'll have them bring their bags to me, and then so that he won't be just coming for one big fat little trash bag, you know,
Right.
so that it'll make it
What they want.
worth their while to
Yeah.
get those two worths out. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as
so,
you're talking to them, you can explain that
right,
and find out what works, you know, good, because maybe you guys will decide together that, you know, come once a month.
yeah,
Just come once a month, that it's gonna be in this spot.
right. Outside the studio,
It's just a turnkey operation.
right,
Once a month, give a day or two, whatever.
yeah.
The guy just comes, he knows he's gotta go to church.
It probably would be more like every other month, you know, because
Well, that,
we're fabricaholics, you know.
yeah, but that's fine.
We're like, okay, what can I do with this little piece? And,
Yeah,
you
hey,
know, and speaking of which, we're having our quilt show on the 16th and 17th of March. Would be a nice thing to go to.
Where?
Tom,
tell us more. Where is it?
it's a
Was
BVT,
texting.
10 to
Oh.
4.
And the floor.
Yeah.
St.
Okay.
Patty's?
Yeah,
Yep,
look
the
at that.
16th and the 17th. And I mean, it is an art show of the highest
Absolutely.
order, you know, it's unbelievable what these women do.
So part of my Board of Health Administration updates, the CMRK for last 2023 quarter, so that's October, November, and December. They had 28 scheduled pickups. They've had almost 300 pickups to date of last calendar year.
Oh, good.
This last quarter for October, December was 448 pounds. Total pounds collected throughout the calendar year of last year is 6,845.
Wow,
Wow.
3.5 tons.
Yep, that's a lot
I love that.
Well, yeah, because think of that 3.5 tons that we were paying.
in trash.
Rate of burning.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
That's one of the updates.
Okay, that's good.
Second update is from the Salmon VNA and Hospice. There are VNA services for the town of Mendon. They gave us a calendar year report running January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Basically outline the services that they provided throughout the year. On the back of that page, they show that the flu clinics that they did, the senior center, they received 12 individuals, and the one that held at Miscall Middle School, they had 36. COVID data throughout the year, we had a total of 128 confirmed COVID cases and 28 probable cases of COVID throughout the entire year.
Huh,
And
that's interesting.
Yeah, look at the spike at winter time,
yeah,
Yeah,
but he's indoors.
and they do provide blood pressure clinics at the Mendon Senior Center on the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and 12, which I did not know that they did that.
Are we raising your blood pressure?
No.
I could check it for you anytime.
I didn't know they offered that to the seniors.
You know.
But I could, if you wanted.
Because Bob brought that to my attention that I think Amy said that or
Yeah,
somebody,
they have BP clinic, yeah.
a BB clinic.
Yeah.
Or
And
you
they-
saw in one of their newsletters
Which is
about
good,
having the
yeah.
BB clinic.
Yeah.
I think you brought it to my attention that the VNA service did that for the seniors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do that. They'll review your meds with you. You know, and if any like senior ever needed any individual, you know, consultation, I mean, they do
Right.
that too.
So I thought that was very nice.
Yeah,
And that's all I have for an update.
good job.
Have any questions on that topic?
Not a need, no, just with regard to updates, I guess the food permit verbiage is still in process, right? The verbiage for changing food permits to accommodate the discussion we had about charitable groups and no fee.
Yeah, we're still in process
Still
with
in
that.
process, yeah.
Colleen and I are still working with that.
And the tight tank operation maintenance plans,
And
that's.
that's still, I'm still searching properties.
Okay.
That's a tedious, to say the least.
Yeah, I was gonna say on that. Reach out to Missy. She had started doing a lot of that around the lake.
Well, the lake's no problem. It's the other properties in town that I'm looking for tight tanks.
I didn't know. That many.
You think it's just the lake area?
I would think it's few and far between, anyplace else, to tell you the
If-
truth.
Yeah, because I mean, nobody
But
wants.
like-
Can I just worry about the lake then?
That
Well,
would be my
Yeah.
personal concern.
Right.
Would be the lake.
Right, me
Right.
too.
Just the lake this is.
I think it would be rare to find a tight tank anywhere else, because even on the lake, a tight tank is considered almost the last resort.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I can remember approving a couple of systems way down the end of Kinsley Lane that were half and half. They were a septic system, like a single trench for gray water and a tight tank for black water,
right.
because again.
It's so
my-
expensive.
Yeah, I mean, a tight tank is a last resort.
Right.
Yeah, usually it's like, right, smaller parcels that can't, you know, that there just isn't any room to get a.
Yeah,
septic
the only
in
other
there.
place I could see it is in the village here. But I mean, they've put a lot of septic systems in there.
Did you see how nice the Dudley house?
Oh, I know, isn't that beautiful?
Mm,
My
Yeah.
gosh. I mean, and I go by like, not every day for sure, but I mean, I don't go home that way because it's like too crazy, but I come down that way. And all of a sudden I look and I said, holy mackerel, that
Yeah,
is
they did a nice
really
job.
look beautiful.
But in the village here, if you were to walk around, you'd see that even on the real tight lots, by using segmental concrete walls,
Mhm.
they've fit septic systems in.
mhm.
So I'm gonna say.
I think that we're,
The
what-
lake is it.
Oh, good. Then that
I
makes my
think
job
that
a
one
lot
of the houses on Main Street up there, that's
Yeah.
Main Street. There's a couple tight tanks in there somewhere, I think. Trying to think.
I know on the left side,
Yeah. on the
going
left.
towards your house,
Yeah,
I can't think of any. They're all septic systems,
well,
unless it's one of the town buildings.
well, it's, the one that owned that, oh my God, I can't think of what their name was. They were part of the family that owned Lowell's. Yeah, the Lowells. Wasn't there a Lowell that lived there? Because they,
Well, there's one septic system for like 3 buildings that the
Right.
Lowells owned.
yeah,
2 houses and the building on the corner.
right. But then there's the house that's next to
Yeah,
that
and that goes into that
septic
system.
system. And then the other one was owned by, wasn't that a Lowell that owned that too?
If it was, I know the owners now.
It wasn't the Lowells that
Yeah,
like, were-
5
yeah,
has a septic system. 7 is the church. I don't know what they have. 9, I believe, is Mr. Bikino, and he's got a septic system. The next one is the house, that house goes into the communal septic system over here on the corner. So I can't think of anybody, and the one house in the middle that I didn't account for, they put a septic system in that strange house. We were dealing with, there were a lot of delays and.
Oh, 9 Main Street?
There you go, 9. So
which side of the street is that on?
left side going to a house.
Right, yeah, because there was
On
one,
the, on the right side, there's plenty of land.
I thought, because they didn't have enough room between the septic system and the well.
And the well,
They had to
right.
put in a tight tank.
99% are gonna be on the lake.
Yeah,
All right,
oh,
fine.
yeah,
The other ones that you might find
absolutely, yeah,
would be in the village.
All right, so I'm just gonna worry about the lake then,
right,
which is 90% done already.
great.
You know, and like I said, you could always send Missy an email. There might be one that she's got up here that she knows about that she could turn you on to that you might not think about.
Yeah.
But again, even in the village here, you'll see the walls that they've, constructed to hold the septic system up. Because it was so tight. It can't just be a mound of dirt with, the right grading.
Yeah.
So that's where most of them are gonna be.
Easy
And
enough.
again, it's a last resort. It's
Mhm.
not something someone
Oh,
wants to
yeah,
have.
no.
Right,
Not at
oh,
all.
for sure, because
Not
it's
at all.
expensive as heck.
Very expensive.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Tom?
Go on to the next item on the agenda, health agent updates. Colleen?
I am, well, we are, I should say, monitoring, still 10 Northbridge Street. Stevie's been over there, I've been over there. We haven't seen anything on the surface. He's gonna lift the lid and see where the system is, and if it needs to be pumped again, then I'll notify the property owner. He was pretty quick last time and provided us with the pump slip. North Ave, I go by it every single day, as does Stevie too. And I also spoke with John Gibson because he's been kind of looking at it. Haven't seen any breakout there whatsoever. He is due for a pump. I'm surprised that he hasn't had it pumped yet, but I did speak with John today and John said that he has not contacted him. So I will be reaching out to him. He has not conveyed that property yet either. I checked the Worcester Registry of Deeds today too.
When I drove by there today, there were vehicles parked on every inch of that front lawn except for where the fence was.
Mhm.
And they weren't small vehicles.
No, and I did speak with the property owner previously about that. And told him that, he should really try and keep them as far away from that area as possible. And he said that he would. But I plan on speaking with him, so
Yeah,
I've
unfortunately,
also seen the
it looks
trucks.
like they gone back to their old ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fence was still essentially intact. But I was, surprised at the number and the size.
Yeah, as was I.
Because of how many people would be in there.
That's just how many vehicles were there today.
I don't know if they have company a lot, because sometimes you only see one.
Right. If it's the kind of business he's in, I don't know.
Mm.
Just knowing how much mud is out there,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that they have a problem cesspool, I was a little surprised. I
Yep.
mean, they know we're paying attention.
Oh, yeah,
We want it, that we want to help them resolve it.
yep. I'll have a conversation with them and I'll report back to the board next meeting. If there's anything I think you guys should know beforehand, we'll let you know.
I'm sorry, what was that address again, that one?
North Ave,
What was, what?
number 40.
Fine.
43 Blackstone Street. We have not received any response back. I'm in the process right now of researching Title V regulations, and there are a few things in there that the board could enforce. One actually is an enforceable agreement, which forces them, the board could give them a period of time to put a new septic system in or produce the Title V. There's fines involved. I'm in the process of writing down the sections and whatnot so that I can bring it to you and you can decide on what you should do and how you should proceed forward. He's over. It was the 9th that he should have responded and produced the Title V. It is an absolute violation of the Title V regulation for them not to have to produce a Title V upon request, and the Board of Health is within their purview of Title V to request it as well. So I think that at the next meeting, I'll have a more definitive course of action for you to consider taking.
I'm disappointed that I feel like we're being ignored. We're reaching out, offering assistance.
Mhm.
We want to help them comply,
Right.
and we're getting nothing.
And where am I in there?
This is the trailer that used to belong to the Gillette family on Blackstone Street on the right. Pretty much opposite Colleen Lumna's house.
Oh,
I can't
okay,
think, Carlson, I think is her last name
Yeah.
now.
yeah,
Um,
okay,
it's that trailer that's on a foundation.
yeah, I know what you're
It's been
talking.
there probably since the 50s.
Yeah,
I'm 99% sure it's got a cesspool.
I would think, yeah,
It changed hands a while back now,
Mhm.
and we never received
a
a clear
good-
Title V.
right,
And I wasn't really too concerned about it initially, not knowing what was gonna be done with the trailer.
right. That's what almost near, where the Barneses were.
Yes.
Two houses down after that.
Right on that shaft
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah, right, I know, yeah.
Because
Because I go, my daughter's down off of, it's down off of that street, and I'm like, who's living there now? Because there used to be an older man.
Yes.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yeah.
Initially, I wasn't too concerned. But now it seems as though it's been being rented out.
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of people in and out of there,
yeah,
different families. I'm not gonna say a lot of people
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
number,
yeah.
but
right, right.
one car with couple of family members, two cars. We've had problems with trash pickup. We've had trash complaints. We've had abandoned vehicle complaints. Now, even though that the abandoned vehicles doesn't come under Board of Health, I did try to talk with the people that I saw there, and I had a phone conversation with the owner. Explained to him that I was from the Board of Health, not from the building department,
Right,
but I had received a complaint from someone that knows me personally. So I was trying to get them, answers. And
Yeah.
I said, before the building department or the zoning department comes after you, you might want to
Mhm.
head off a problem. And he was very good about it. But now we're trying to
Mhm.
button up these loose ends of the not getting a Title V within whatever it is, 90 days, or when the property changes hands.
And do we know the owner?
Yeah, he lives on
Oh.
Megan Court.
Oh,
Yeah, we served him with by the constable.
And
Oh.
we're
By
getting
the
ignored.
constable. Mhm.
So I mean, you offer help and you don't even get acknowledgement that you're offering to help them comply. I'm stumped.
But I think your next correspondence is going to be a little bit more official with regards to citing
right,
Title
rules
V.
and regs.
So that may
I hope so.
prompt them, because there's fines involved also. So now when you start talking, usually when you start talking about the wallet,
Right.
there'll be a different look.
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, we have an obligation
Right. That's our job.
to
Mhm.
get this squared away. I'd much rather do it in a helpful manner.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try this approach.
Okay.
Um, also working with, the, Leominster Tobacco, Commission with regards to compliance checks. We are, looking, there's a lot of activity right now with regards to single sales and also, finding flavored tobacco in the retail stores. So we're circling back. I mean, we did our youth compliance checks and we had no sales, but we have to be diligent with the retail checks.
Right.
We had a conversation today, Colleen from Liquor World called, and certain products that they want to introduce into their store. A couple of them, we advised her today that while they're not banned right now, they probably will be once we go through the process and the board agrees to it next year, they probably will be banned from sale. So we're working very closely with Jody right now.
Well, I think it's great that someone reached out
Mm-hmm.
and inquired ahead of time. I mean, that's
Right.
wonderful. I mean, that's,
Right.
you can't be more responsible than that.
Well,
So,
the lines of communication, it's important,
glad to hear that,
very important.
you know. Rather than have to peel them off the shelf in a year or, you
Mhm.
know.
I'll
get
find
yourself
them.
in a pinch.
Yeah, fine. Right.
No, that's,
Right.
Mm.
I've never heard of anybody reaching out ahead of time. That's great. But I think that's because of the relationship that you're developing with, you know, these tobacco, retail
Mhm.
outlets, that they obviously feel comfortable reaching out and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's what I
And
was saying earlier.
Learning the rules. I mean,
Yep.
they're learning the rules and what they can do and what
Right.
they can't. Good job.
But that's what I was saying earlier about how in touch the board is with their community, and that's how it's important. So that if they do have a question, like this retailer did, and they feel comfortable
Right.
enough to call up and say,
Right.
hey,
What's going?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a nice job down there. They cleaned that place up
Mm-hmm.
and expanded, you know, their area. I was.
What
in there
place
with my
are we?
wife. The old Pop and Cork.
Oh, I haven't been there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
they have that huge humidor now.
Yeah, I guess I look towards the liquor side.
Cold
section.
Yeah, I know, it's enormous. It's a room.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you know, if someone hadn't been in there in the last 3 or 4 years and went in there today, they wouldn't know where they were.
And what is that for?
Cigars,
Oh.
Yeah.
Tobacco.
Where they sell them? It's their,
Store.
they store them
them.
because they have to be maintained in a certain temperature.
yeah.
Mm. You know, like the humidity
Yeah.
has to be there.
Yeah.
But they really invested a lot of money in it. A lot of money, and I am happy to say, because I have gone in there a couple of times since the key was in the, left in the door. And matter of fact, Colleen told me today that with their, and the key wasn't in the door, by the way.
Right.
But she told me today that they're going to be installing a button underneath the counter. So if someone wants a cigar, instead of them having to come out and go and unlock it, they can just press the button.
You know,
Yeah,
Can't get the key in the lock that way, right?
that's
right.
Yeah.
And that's a, well, and a couple of
Lot
others
benefits to
too.
that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The other thing is, we're working with the, believe it or not, the food trucks already. And, the joint operations on Route 16, they're having some events with food trucks. Last Friday,
Mhm.
I went there to inspect a food truck, what I thought was gonna be a food truck that was licensed, and when I arrived to a food truck that was not licensed.
And where is that now again?
Joint operations on Route 16.
Route 16,
The old, what?
Used to be the old rental
Exxon
place.
money. And then it was 490, was
495
Taylor Rental.
Taylor,
Taylor
Oh,
Rental.
yeah, okay, now I know where you are.
Yep.
Yeah, right,
a
sorry.
big banner out there on the street.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So they're gonna have these types of events, but anyway, like I said, I arrived to a food truck that was not licensed. And, I approached them in the usual way that I do and asked, my very first question always is, may I see your food permit? And I had a nice conversation with the gentleman. He wasn't licensed. I explained to him that he needs to be licensed. I asked him how long he's been in business for. He said 5 years. I said, well, then you should know better.
Have you ever seen this food truck before?
No,
First time?
first time, first time. And,
It's on base.
Natick?
yeah, right. Yeah, Natick.
Natick.
Yep. So anyway, needless to say, he was not allowed to stay there. And he had to pack up. I went into the establishment, asked to speak with the manager who organized the event, and I had a nice conversation with her too. I told her that we need to work together, and what she needs to do is, she needs to inform us of her events and, the licensed trucks like Vandervalk Farm does, all right, so that we can see. And as a matter of fact, this particular food truck was listed in Vandervalk Farm to be there in June. So I let him know that he was not licensed, and I also, because Lisa had called, just happened to call, so I mentioned it to Lisa as well. Long story short, I let the joint operations know. I mean, it's our intention. We all want to work collaboratively together. The lines of communication be open. I suggested to her that before, she books these types of establishments, to make sure that they're licensed, and she should be asking for it, to be honest with you. She can also always check with us.
Yeah.
I also let them know, because it's my protocol and always has been, to notify the police department, which I did. I spoke with the chief to explain to the chief what was going on. And, so we have established protocol now with regards to these types of, if this type of a event ever happens again. The chief's aware of it. He said, absolutely, I want to know, give me a call. So he had, the food truck was scheduled to be there from 4 to 7. I let the chief know that, so they were, and I didn't think that the gentleman would be foolish enough to stay.
and he didn't.
No, well, I waited for him to
Oh,
leave.
right.
I didn't leave until he left. And, but all in all, it was a very positive experience for everybody, because we established communication with the joint operations and with that event planner. I'm working on establishing, communication with the other two, marijuana establishments in town, because they're going to be held in similar events, and explain and go through the process with them as well.
Yeah, that's nice now that management person knows
Mm-hmm,
Right.
something maybe that they hadn't handled before.
mm-hmm,
They know what they need to do, so
Mhm.
that situation won't happen again.
correct.
So,
And they're having another event, well, this particular food truck wants to participate in their event next Friday, but we haven't received all the paperwork yet. Jack and I are also working on updating the mobile food permit application form. We've created, we took this safety checklist that I've always used, in my inspections, and we made it into a questionnaire, and we're going to incorporate it into the application at the time when they apply. So then I can take that checklist with me that they completed and said, yes, they have done this. Yes, they have this, and I can bring it with me
Right. That's
at the
good.
time of the inspection.
Yeah.
Say, well, on your application, but it's not what I'm seeing here. So Jack and I are working on that right now.
that's good.
You know what I saw, like, I think it was probably almost a month ago, but I saw the Maine Lobster.
Oh, Cousins, they're a great operation down where,
Yeah, down in the little.
yeah, I
Moby
inspected
Joe's.
it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, oh yeah,
'Cause
Larry
I was
Joe's.
going by, because I can't, I'm allergic to lobster and shrimp. But my husband would have loved it, but I was.
They have a great operation. I'll tell you that their trucks are incredibly clean.
I just was so surprised to see
Yeah.
it there, because usually it's that there's the other. truck
Larry,
here.
yeah. Well, I said that to Tara. It's two sisters. And I said to her, it was raining out. It was
Yeah, it
cold.
wasn't a good day. Yeah,
You could not believe the amount of people
I-
that were lined up.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on social media, but my wife is, and my girls are, and they're always aware.
Oh, yeah.
Houses is allowed.
I came out of, after inspecting it, I came out of the food truck and a very, very, very good friend, I call him my little sister. And I was walking away and I heard someone say, hey, lady, and I turn around. I said, what the hell are you doing here? Should I follow them?
Yeah,
So funny.
Yeah, yeah, but they are a great operation. I mean,
but that makes it twice as good.
absolutely.
Well, the
And
next
they're
time that-
scheduled to be at Vandervox also.
Oh, are they?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
See, the next time they're in town, let me know. I'll get them one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we're just, that's what we're working on. I went and inspected, Gallifit's, last Friday.
Last Friday.
Yep. Another great operation,
good.
great operation. That's it.
Good job.
Good team.
That's right.
That's what we like.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on this? Any questions for Colleen?
I've got plenty of questions, but not about this.
Uh, Community service announcements, a new line item on our agenda.
You got any?
Anybody?
Oh, you had them last meeting.
I do, yeah. One is actually related to the topic of CMRK. I don't know if you were aware, we got an email last month. Actually, it's CMRK is connected with the Big Brothers Big Sisters. That's the actual group, right? So when you go up on the website to schedule, it says Big Brothers Big Sisters. So people, I don't know if people have ever been confused about it, but they had just informed us that in January, they launched a new donation pickup scheduling system. They were having some problems prior. I think I mentioned to Jack, I had an issue trying to get something picked up, and I guess
Yeah.
they've had some issues. So they just mentioned the systems were almost 15 years old and needed an update to provide donors with an easier and more efficient means to schedule their pickup. So hopefully if anybody out there is listening, if they've had some problems, give it another shot. It sounds like they've kind of rectified the issues they were having schedule wise, and hopefully they shouldn't have any problems moving forward.
Are we scheduled?
Yeah, before Mendon wasn't listed, that's when Tom brought it to my attention that we weren't listed, so I contacted my rep. Like, hey, Mendon's not listed. She goes, let me get back to you, gotta contact IT. And a couple hours later, she says, you should be all set. Mendon should have a drop down for a date.
Fantastic.
And the only other one I had is kind of related to a memo we got regarding, it's from Regional Public Health regarding hospital capacity planning. I know you may already be kind of moved in on it, but they just basically had was stating that in response to severe capacity challenges to our healthcare system, temporary operational and practice flexibilities are being implemented to mitigate this significant surge. Then there was an attached memo that explains what they were doing. And Joyce, you're probably pretty well familiar with how the normal practices are, but
Right.
essentially what they're saying here is that the Massachusetts healthcare system continues to face severe capacity challenges as we navigate through the winter months with record hospital occupancy levels, 3 prevalent viruses circulating, and significant workforce shortages. These issues exist across the system and require immediate short-term action on all parts to release pressure in the system and support timely patient transitions to the most appropriate care setting. To that end, we have requested and your respective membership organizations have expressed support for the following temporary operational and practice flexibilities to mitigate the impacts of the significant surge. And what they've highlighted here is with regard to health plans, Blue Cross Blue Shield Mass and MAHP, which I believe is Mass Health Plan, right? They've agreed to voluntarily waive prior authorization beginning on January 9, 2024 and ending on April 1, 2024 for admissions from acute care hospitals to subacute care facilities and rehabilitation facilities across commercial, Medicaid, Medicare, and Medicare Advantage lines of business. Plans will encourage self-insured plan sponsors to adopt the waiver. It does note that the waiver does not apply to long-term or custodial admissions. And then in reference to nursing facilities, Nursing facilities have agreed to extend their admissions hours to accept admissions Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. At a minimum, and will continue capacity building efforts to accommodate admissions 24/7. And the last area was under hospitals. Hospitals agree to commence discharge planning and care coordination as early as practicable in the admission and ensure that patients are discharged as early as prudent in the day. Hospitals must also seek innovative ways to improve their staffing plans with a goal to fully staff all licensed adult, medical, and surgical beds. That's essentially what they were passing on. It's, you know, it was where it's an issue going on for a while, so. But those are some of the things, that steps they're taking, hopefully it will help. So,
Hard to believe.
yeah,
I mean, with all the facilities that we have, that, everybody's at capacity. But
And well,
hopefully
some of
it's
them are
sustainable.
closing too. Some of them.
Yeah, I know there was a bailout,
Yeah, with Stewart.
but I don't know if it's long-term or not.
I don't
well,
either.
so I can probably give a little insight there. So Stewart about 3 weeks ago or so came out with that announcement. They own about 9 or 10 facilities in Massachusetts.
Right.
And they basically said that they had financial concerns because they basically were, from their perspective, they're losing money. And like, probably most hospitals or facilities, 70% of their patients are Medicare, Medicaid. So I think it's a situation where they just weren't getting a return on the services, getting paid for services being rendered to patients in those environments. And so there's one facility they are going to be
Closing.
closing, but they plan to close that before this announcement anyway. I think it's Mount Sinai, it's a rehabilitation facility.
Yeah.
But since that announcement came out about a week or so ago, there was an announcement that apparently they're able, some sort of an agreement has been reached. I'm assuming with the state. So they're holding back now on,
And I think they had a financial partner come in too
okay,
with them.
yeah. So they've apparently come to an agreement, or
Right.
monies have been made available to ease that situation. So hopefully things will move forward. It was pretty hard to believe that they could, and one of the hospitals on that list was St. Elizabeth's, right?
Right.
I couldn't believe that they would consider closing St.
That's
Elizabeth's,
a
right?
huge one.
That's a
Isn't that
good
what
sized
your wife
hospital. What's that?
Isn't that where your wife works?
That's, she actually is affiliated with Stewart,
Yeah,
and that's one of her, that's her base hospital.
yeah.
But she works remote.
Going back to where it all started.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I was born.
Oh, really? Oh.
Oh, how could you close that
Huh.
facility?
Huh.
But anyway, things are looking good on that front, so that's nice.
Hospitals are almost like big insurance companies. There's no
Mhm.
way. How too many hospitals to close, but I mean, the population's going this way. How can you have less?
I think there's and you might have a thought on it, I think there's a systemic problem in the system as a whole, nationwide, that needs to be addressed. I don't know how you do that, but just as a whole, for all the great healthcare we have, there's just, I think, issues with the processes.
Well, and if you don't have enough staff, you could have the facility, but if there's not staff to staff it, it doesn't matter.
Well, one of the things that it absolutely drives me a little crazy is that these bigger hospitals aren't hiring LPNs.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know what L means, right?
Love.
No, that means that they've had licensure, they've had testing, they've had to pass a very strict licensing.
Yeah.
Testing.
Mhm.
They're not, doesn't mean low
No.
practical nurse or little practical nurse.
Correct,
You
yeah.
know, and it's crazy. And to have CNAs that are in doing patient care and RNs doing the table work and having to do all this stuff
Yeah.
and not hire LPNs. But I'm newly on the board at the hospital
Oh, so you took it?
Mm.
Good for you.
Joe,
Good for you.
because I'm wanting to do that. I'm wanting
Good.
to make that happen.
No slow in Joystown.
And what do you think is the base reason why why that is?
Well, I think I think it has to do with some of the hierarchy
Mhm.
that in the nursing hierarchy that are the people that, you know, are in the hospital and the care facilities
Yeah.
that think that they don't have enough, they're not educated enough.
Exactly.
And they have a lot of stuff, and I'm on the advisory board at BVT,
Mhm.
the nursing program, so I know what they do. I
Mhm.
know the stuff that they can do. I mean, I've seen them, I've watched them, I've been with them. And to take somebody that has 6 weeks of training and try to have them do patient care,
Mhm.
and they don't know from
Right.
their,
And you have a licensed
Practical
practical
nurse.
nurse.
and that's what I say.
I
That's
remember when I used to
licensed.
work it.
Licensed, you
That's
know
right.
what licensed means?
That's
They
right.
had to take testing, state boards, they have to
Yep.
pass the state boards
Yep.
before they can get their license to work.
Big bone of contention for me too, Joyce.
Oh,
Is there
huge for
a
me.
big difference in pay between a CNA and an LPN?
Fair amount, yeah,
Mhm.
as it
So
should be,
could
as
that-
it should be,
Agreed.
because a CNA is not worthy of doing what the
Could
LPN
the
does.
financial aspect be part of the reason if they can get away with?
Well, let me
going to
tell
a
you,
CNA?
let me tell you some of the things that they do. They hire traveling nurses. Do you know how much traveling nurses get paid?
A huge amount.
A huge amount. And by the way, they have to pay for their housing by the month. If they come there and they stay for a month,
Mhm.
or if they come there for 3 weeks, they have to pay for a month's
Okay,
housing.
so why would you,
The town does.
Why
I mean,
would-
not the town, the hospital.
Hospital.
so why would you hire
Yes,
a
that's a good
traveling
question.
nurse over a permanent?
Good question.
I mean, I know some young ladies that have done that for a year or two.
Well, because it's very lucrative.
Well, and then they go back and they get their masters or they get their doctorate, but in the meantime, they've got more experience and they've saved some money, so pretty smart. Versus going the other way, trying to get your masters and your doctorate with no experience and no money.
Mhm.
So it makes sense to make that pause where that traveling nurse situation is available. But I would think from an employer standpoint, in some cases, you could hire 2 for 1.
Right.
Does it relate to
Great.
Forget
benefit
about the
costs?
3 for 1.
Does it relate to benefit costs or carrying X type of individual on the payroll and having to?
How could it? I mean, what would it be?
Mhm.
I mean, when I say that they're getting like over $1,000 a week. And that's not including their housing.
Mhm.
That's not including that.
Yes, I've heard numbers more than that.
Yeah, well, I'm saying over because I
Yeah.
don't
You
want,
want to go all the.
you want some,
Don't give out that amount.
just slit my throat as I'm going on.
Yeah.
But it just is, to me, it doesn't make any sense when you have good programs and that those good programs were done back in the day
Mhm.
to facilitate nursing care
Mhm.
instead of a 6-week CNA. You know, that very often are very interested in doing it, but they have no experience. They can't do all the things. They can't,
Right. They have
You
no
know,
practical
right.
skill
Right,
training.
and not to discourage someone who's a CNA, because a lot
No.
of young people that are CNAs,
are going to school.
they want to go the next step.
Right,
But this is what they can do now
Mhm.
to gain experience and make money, just like I mentioned. So I mean, I guess you gotta start somewhere,
right.
but it would be very hard to depend in a medical situation on a lot of unskilled staff.
Yes, it's not.
Right. Anything else on community service announcements?
Nope, those are the only two I had.
All right, very good. We will move on to the next one, outstanding old business.
I do not have any.
Fantastic. Anybody have anything?
Nope.
Topics not anticipated.
I do not have any.
Nothing new that I'm aware of.
Nope.
Very good.
Does our guest have anything?
We have guests, so yeah, we have guests on.
questions or-
Any questions or comments? Next meeting,
February 28th. And it is a leap year this year.
yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
Catch me. All right, so, next meeting, same time, 6:30, good for everybody?
Good for me.
Please.
I'm sorry, that's my, I have problems. Yes,
Yeah.
good, yes. I have so many people that I have to care for. It's like crazy
If yourself, right?
Almost there.
trying.
We don't have anything else, we'll have a motion, adjourn,
I move.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good job.
Do you need anything? Do you need any help? No, I'm serious.
I need a ride.